Alex and Prohaska's losses will affect this fight?
Will my loss to Alex and Yuri affect this fight? How would it do that?
UFC Fight Night Azerbaijan just finished, and it turns out that Hood Magic doesn't beat Cult Magic. Now, Hill and Khalil just put on an absolute barn burner. It was intense. It was insane. No, I'm just joking. That was basically a glorified sparring match with a couple of knockdowns sprinkled in there. Oh yeah, and some calf kicks. But more on the fight later. What I want to talk about today is the downfall of Jamahal Hill. Saltmaster Hill is now 0-3 in his last 3 UFC performances, and you'd have to think after being out-techniqued for 5 rounds, after being slept by Yuri, and after being knocked out in the first by Pereira, that he would now come to his senses and try to learn from his mistakes. You know, maybe he's just not on that level in the UFC and he needs to put in some work to get better. Well, if you're thinking like that, you're wrong, because this is Saltmaster Hill we're talking about. I don't know if you guys saw it at the end of this fight. Jamahal made his way over to Khalil, who was going like this, is trying to ignore him a little bit. And he gets in his face and asks him, "Yo, bro, why didn't you sit there and bang with me? Why didn't you bite down on your mouthpiece and go to war with me?" I don't know, because that's playing into your game plan? Are you fucking retarded? Yeah, just let me take the fight to where it's best for you. Is that what you want? That would be great. Yeah, let's do that. It's such a brain-dead take. I know for UFC fans, that's what we want. We want people to get in the pocket and just throw down. But to expect someone else to do that after they've just calf kicked the shit out of you for 5 rounds, body kicks, body punches, and dropped you about 5 times, and you're like, "Why didn't you get in the pocket more and throw, bro?" You just got dominated. Why is the question not, how do I maybe get better at fighting? How do I defend a low kick? It was very obvious that Hill was the more rangy fighter, yet he couldn't get past Khalil and his leg kicks. So what, Khalil is just meant to sit there and let you punch him? He's meant to sit there in range when he enters and let you beat his ass? It's just fucking stupid. Now, I think the fight was pretty boring, don't get me wrong. There were some moments where it was exciting, but Khalil just didn't follow up, and he was being quite risk adverse. But after this fight, we have to ask a simple question. Was Jamahal Hill ever UFC champion material? And the short answer is yes, he held the belt. But the long answer is no. So let's look at the situation. Jamahal had just got his arm snapped by Paul Craig, and then he went out there and beat a washed Crute, Chinny Walker, and then also hammer chest on his way out Santos. These guys that he fought and beat, even at the time, weren't that great. Yet somehow, through sheer luck, he manages to snag a title fight opportunity because Yuri hurt his shoulder. Now granted, Hill in this title fight did very well, but Glover himself was already an aged fighter. I think he had the record for the oldest fighter to hold a belt, and you can't say that that fight wasn't exciting. I enjoyed it myself thoroughly. But what we do need to say is, Jamahal was gifted that opportunity. He was very lucky that it wasn't Yuri, and he barely scraped by that win over an old Glover Teixeira. And just because he got that belt doesn't clearly mean that Jamahal was the best in the division. To prove my point, let's look at the top of the division currently. He'd lose to Big Boring Ank. He gets outpointed by Olberg. Hell, even Yarn would give him a close fight if they didn't rob him. Again. And outside of all of this, Jamahal Hill isn't doing much in terms of gaining fan sympathy here. The constant excuses after the Pereira match and the continuation of the salt from there on out has just got fans hating on this guy so much. I mean, at this point, what is there to like about Jamahal Hill? His trash talk sucks. He's obviously now not that technical of a striker, and he's extremely plotty and not that explosive. And yes, he is a dog, right? He throws down and he's tough. But if being a dog meant you were a fan favorite, Chris Matinho would be a fucking superstar by now. Look, I really used to like Jamahal Hill. That fight over Glover, as I said, that was one of the most entertaining fights I'd watched, and I really enjoyed him in that fight. But after the Pereira loss, and after all the excuses and salt maxing, it's really hard to like the guy because he's not fighting well, he's making excuses all the time. All he needs to do is shut the fuck up and train and get some wins. That's when people will come back to liking you again. And sure, it's not a popularity contest, but at the same time, this is a fan-driven sport and you're not winning any fights. So not only are the fans not liking you, you're also on a 3-fight skid. What is there to like? What is there to watch? Nothing. And I'm not sure if Jamahal was always this salt maxer that we see now. Was he like this before and maybe he just never had the spotlight on him? He had never lost, so we could never see this salty, just excuse-filled side of him? But nonetheless, it's just sad to watch. And look, at least if you're a little bit humble and you don't make excuses and you come back and you just put on good fights, fans will be there to support you. But Jamahal just always goes the other way. I'm sure even after this fight, he'll just go straight back to excuses and he'll go straight back to talking shit. And before all of this, I thought, man, maybe Jamahal's playing the heel character, you know? Jamahal Hill? Jamahal Hill? Okay, I'll shut the fuck up. But it's for certain now, I don't think that Hill is playing a character. I think this is him. I think he has a huge chip on his shoulder. I think he is the salt maxer. I think he is even more salty than Joe Pyfer. And when you're like that as a person, you will never grow. Now, granted, he was fighting Khalil, the level 300 cult master, the emotional intelligence god himself. Join Choice Center today. So what's next for Jamahal? Maybe they could do a Jan Blachowicz fight, or even give him Dominic Reyes? You know, one last chance for Reyes to go out there and take Hill's name and go for a title shot. That would be really cool. I'm not really sure what's next for Jamahal, but one thing is for sure, he needs to start focusing on now and the future, rather than focusing on the excuses in the past. Because it is very clear that he's not UFC champion material right now. He could be in the future, but if he keeps making excuses, he won't be. And now you do need to give respect for Jamahal. One thing I respect about Jamahal is that he followed in Yuri's footsteps. When he got injured, he relinquished the belt. He didn't hold up the division. He's not doing a Jon Jones. And I respect that a lot. He's also a dog. He gets in there and he puts his brain on the line. He gets in there and he throws down. And yeah, he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. But I feel like you probably have to be a professional fighter. And I have all the respect in the world for those guys. But at the same time, he is still a salt maxer, and that doesn't change that fact. But guys, let me know what your favorite fight was on the card. What do you think about Jamahal Hill and who we should fight next? If you're new to the channel, don't forget to slap the shit out of the like and subscribe button and my anus. And I'll see you later on in the week for new uploads. Peace out.